So, Dave, let's back up just a little bit. I imagine some of the people who are listening to us, they have. It's hard to believe that anybody wouldn't obviously know that there's some controversy involving Donald Trump and NFL players who were kneeling or taking a knee, as they say, during the national anthem. But just catch people up if they haven't been aware of what's actually been going on for the past year and a half now or so.
Sure. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, all of this starts really in the summer of 2016 with the police killings of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. And with those killings, I mean, Colin Kaepernick, who had been doing his own reading and his own study and it was auditing a class at Berkeley, this is, of course, the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, made the decision that he was not going to stand for the national anthem. And this wasn't anything, Colin Kaepernick, whom I've gotten to know, this is a very introverted person. He's not someone looking for the spotlight. If he was, believe me, he'd be on every TV show right now because everybody's trying to get him, and he's choosing to not speak. But Colin Kaepernick made the personal decision that he wasn't going to stand for the anthem, and then a reporter found him and said, hey, why aren't you doing this? And Colin Kaepernick just went off and said, I'm not going to stand for a flag while black people are killed in the streets and police get away with murder. That's how it started. And then Kaepernick took that knee week in, week out for 4 months. Other players joined in. Some raised fists. Some sat down. Teammates on the 49ers rallied around him. He actually ended up having a great season last year, playing on a terrible team. And then at age 29, he found himself out of the league in a case that I think pretty nakedly is a case of political blackballing. And he did all this even though he was getting death threats. He became a punchline, more punch than punchline for Donald Trump on the campaign trail. I mean, he really weathered a great deal, but came out of it at the other side. I mean, really in a great place, like mentally, a great place organizationally. He's given away hundreds of thousands of dollars to different groups around the country. I mean, it really special stuff that he's done. I mean, raising money for food for people in Somalia. I mean, to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, he's become this remarkable figure in American life, yet still blackballed from the National Football League and still an object of derision and hatred by the right-wing echo chamber. And, Colin Kaepernick is fine with that. But you fast forward now, and what happened before the start of this NFL season was not just Colin Kaepernick's inability to find a job, but, of course, Charlottesville. Nazis marching in the street. Donald Trump saying very fine people march with a swastika. And, of course, the murder of Heather Heyer. And with that, you had the start of the NFL season and players like Michael Bennett, members of the Cleveland Browns, Marshawn Lynch, choosing to sit, raise their fist, or kneel during the anthem. But it didn't really reach more than 9 or 10 players in total who were doing it week in, week out. And Donald Trump, who has this lizard brain instinct for who to isolate and who to demonize and who to make feel like they're somehow less than human for his base and for his audience. And he also seems to get like this when his legislative agenda stalls.
Right.
Not so coincidentally. It's like when things are failing for him, the health care bill floundering, Donald Trump, and supporting a candidate in Alabama for Senate who, as of the time we're doing this interview, looks like he's going to lose to the person supported by the alt-right and Steve Bannon. Donald Trump goes to Alabama.
Let me just put a fine point on that, because Luther Strange, who Donald Trump is supporting, is also Mitch McConnell's candidate. And I think more than any other dynamic that's going on here, I think that explains it. It's, Donald Trump, when he loses legislatively, I mean, he's done that time and time again. But when Donald Trump feels that in some way his relationship to nativists, to racists, to civic nationalists is in some way threatened, he does stuff like this. And his support for Luther Strange has him at odds with Steve Bannon, and he looks like he is siding with the globalists, with the Washington establishment. So this is the way that he brandishes his bona fides, by basically going out there and choosing someone who is not white. I mean,
Right.
that's like when he's looking for a target, that it seems to be the primary qualification that he's looking for.
Right, and we hear it referred to in the mainstream media sometimes almost like way too delicately as culture war politics. It's not culture war. I mean, it's pretty naked racism with just enough
Right.
sort of like wiggle room and a patina of sort of like patriotism, real America stuff that you can say, what? It has nothing to do with race. I didn't say anything about race. I'm just calling on black dissenters to get fired in front of an all-white Alabama audience. How can that have anything to do with race? And what Donald Trump didn't understand with this speech is that he wasn't just going after 9 players, 10 players, 11 players. He was going after the NFL community. And Donald Trump, he never played football. The same way he was never in the military, and he's such this maelstrom of toxic masculinity that he lives vicariously through a lot of these people, whether you're talking about soldiers, whether you're talking about football players, and I think
truck drivers. He has the same relationship with big trucks and fire department trucks, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, his obsession over the size of his hands, his sexually predatory behavior. I mean, really, it doesn't take Freud to figure out where he's coming from with this stuff. It's not that complicated. And so he goes after not just these NFL players, but he goes after a league that he describes as being too soft. And pines for the days when more players were getting traumatic brain injuries. And so what Donald Trump didn't understand is that he messed up on 2 fronts. And I really do think he messed up with this. I don't think the politics and the optics of this are good for him at all, beyond the hardest of the hardcore of his base. And I think people should reject any analysis that says, like, Trump is winning this argument or whatever. I think it looks flailing and pathetic. So it's like 2 things, though, that Trump didn't understand he was stepping in. The first is that when it comes to NFL players, and I know this from talking to these guys, they believe in this thing that they call the brotherhood, which is kind of like an I am Spartacus thing of you attack one of us, you attack all of us. So even if these players, many of whom might have even voted for Trump, many of whom didn't vote at all, some of whom do not agree with even the issue of that we have to stand up to police brutality. But when you call for NFL players to be fired, when you say the phrase son of a bitch to talk about an NFL player, which they interpreted immediately as they're attacking the mom of our teammates. I mean, they're calling like these women who are very active in the locker room in terms of creating community, the mothers of NFL players. I mean, people took that extremely personally. And saying the game was too soft and it was boring because it was too soft, that goes after the owners, some of the very people who've given Donald Trump millions and 1000000s of dollars in this campaign. And one thing about billionaires is they don't like being told what to do, and they don't like their bottom line being challenged. So, and I'm trying to even rack my brain like of anything parallel to this in the history of the United States, where these plutocrats who wrote these 7-figure checks to Donald Trump are within 48 hours doing nationally televised or taking part in nationally televised demonstrations against him. And, of course, it wasn't just in the NFL. This is spread throughout the NBA now in terms of the comments of players like LeBron James and Steph Curry, aided by, Donald Trump having like another culture war, if you will, hissy fit online because his legislative agenda is failing, Luther Strange, all the stuff that you said, healthcare. And so he goes after the Golden State Warriors and just invites them from the White House. I'm sure that the fact that Golden State is from the Bay Area has nothing to do with this calculation whatsoever. But this is where,
Dave, we got to take a break here. But I want to ask you. I mean, we've gotten to the place where the fight here and the I guess the attention is now between Donald Trump and these institutions of football or other sports. And you argue that Donald Trump is losing because of that. But I also wonder if what Colin Kaepernick first took a knee for is also losing. And I want to talk about that when we come back. We got to take a quick break. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. I'm talking to Dave Zirin about this unprecedented situation where the President of the United States is attacking football because of protest by Colin Kaepernick. We'll be right back after this.